replacements, all vinyl triple pane windows, and a lifetime warranty of everything, while still keeping their prices affordable. Sounds too good to be true, right? Heartland of Nebraska Windows is locally and family owned with their own team of installers. Give the window experts at Heartland of Nebraska Windows a call today at 402-430-3852 or visit them online at heartlandofnebraskawindows.com. Elevate your home or business with the help of Heartland of Nebraska Windows today.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet, KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. You're listening to Walk the Herd on 93.7 The Ticket. When unheard issues get brought to light and every perspective counts. Here is your host, Rebecca Pearson.
All right, welcome in. It is Sunday night, 7 p.m., Lincoln, Nebraska. And this is a new show, so hopefully you're listening in from Kaylee, just tuning in to see what's going on in 93.7 The Ticket. My name is Rebecca Pearson, and I have a special host tonight, Aniko Renee, and hopefully she's there. Maybe we'll test out her audio. Aniko, can you say hi?
Hello, hello. Hello.
There she is. Awesome. Okay, excellent. Well, I am delighted to have you here tonight. This is a new show for anybody just tuning in. We're going to start with a little bit of about what the show is about, because this has been a passion project for me. But for anybody listening, if you, during the conversation, you want to send in your chats, call in, text in 402-464-5685. We're here. You can see us on Allo channel 961. And of course, hopefully you're listening to us on the app or some other way in car. So tonight's show has been a passion project for me, and I've asked Aniko to join me, and we're going to do a little introduction as to who the heck we are and what the heck this show is about. So kind of fun to come up with a name. And if you can't see, Walk the Herd is H-E-A-R-D. And each week we're going to try to invite you to walk with us into someone else's world. And it's going to be about their experiences, their challenges, and their point of view. Tonight, we've kind of got an interesting topic, and I'll give you a story behind that. Our purpose is simple. We really want to open our minds to how issues and situations look through different lifestyles, beliefs, or worldviews. Sometimes what you hear may challenge your own thinking, and that's the point. We are not here to persuade you or try to make you change your opinion. That is not the goal. The goal is to have a conversation and potentially walk in someone else's world. You certainly have, many of you have probably heard of walking a day in another person's shoes, which I think you can conclude is actually impossible to do. However, sometimes we do try to understand where other people are coming from, and that's where that saying comes from. So together we're going to cover topics across the gamut: sports, business, life, anything that comes to mind. Probably a lot having to do with gender or ethnic perspectives that I feel are too often overlooked. However, everybody's perspective counts, and I'm going to keep reinforcing that, because this is about opening your mind and listening to different perspectives, not about persuasion. We might have a couple opinions thrown in here and there. That's okay, but everybody's entitled to their opinion. So this is your chance to listen, reflect, and maybe even see the world a little differently. So we invite you to walk with the herd and not run with the herd. Okay, so walk with the H-E-A-D-E-R-D and not run with the H-E-R-D, right? Break out of the pack. All right, so that's my little introduction. Aniko, we're going to get you, at least welcome you in. And my little brief intro to you is you're a young entrepreneur and a talented woman with a ton of perspective that you're willing to share with us. So here's your official good evening. You there?
I'm breaking up a little bit, so I may call
Okay.
in a minute, but for the most part, I'm hearing everything.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, I'm going to start with my background, Aniko. So if you have any technology problems, I think our backup would be to have you call in. That's very reliable. So if you feel like your internet is going out, Aniko's joining us from Southern Maryland, and I'm here in Lincoln, Nebraska. So even for Aniko, you may not have heard my story too much. We've talked plenty. Aniko is my daughter. So she stands on her own in her own right and her own personality. But for people who would know, this is kind of a fun mother-daughter thing for us to do. Very bright lady. But let me start with who I am, because a lot of people don't know that I'm co-owner of The Ticket 93.7. For people who are listening, I am DP's wife. And I'm not usually on the air. I have a show that I just started on Saturday mornings called Business Builders. My passion is about business. I can talk all day long about business, and I do that with Matt Warner. But as I said in my introduction, if you missed that here at 93.7 The Ticket, this is a little bit of a passion area for me, and I'm going to give you a background as to why that is. So initially, when DP and I started the station, we thought long and hard about why would we buy a radio station. And in addition to DP definitely loving sports and me as well, we wanted to be a community station. And part of that was something that we both believe in, that a lot of people can come together as a community when you're rallying around sports, and particularly teams. And here in Lincoln, we're not from Nebraska, but we chose this because there is such a marvelous fan base here, and they love their Huskers, or they love their black and gold, or whatever university. We've got Doane, Wesleyan, got Bellevue. Kaylee was just here. We've got lots of universities, and the Nebraska fans love their teams. And when you all rally around the same team or the same concept, then you kind of leave whatever your perspectives are, and everybody's cheering for the same team. And that's important as we talk a little bit about my career and why I like to talk about these kinds of topics, is we believe in diversity of thought. Whether it's your workforce, whether it is cheering for your team, or whether it's the talent on your team, diversity of thought, in my view, makes all boats rise. When you have people that are working for you, or people participating, or talent that represents either your population or the folks that you are trying to appeal to, then you have a better community and better outcomes. So a lot of this ties to performance, whether it's teams or workforce. That's how I look at it. And everybody deserves to be heard. So in that, we believe in inclusion because everybody should feel valued, and we believe there should be equal opportunity to speak. Hence why we have a microphone and a sports radio station. And you should have the opportunity to have any job that you would like. So that's kind of the equality and diversity of thought, and feeling heard makes you feel included. So a lot of my experience in this topic came from working a very long career. I'm old, and I worked at Lord & Taylor, which is a department store similar to Von Maur, for anybody who's in the Nebraska area, or Macy's, or Annie, I'm trying to think of another big store. Nico, you can jump in here. A big store that you might know.
Dillard's?
Dillard's. There you go. Thank you. We have a Dillard's in town. Good job. So I started as a stock clerk at age 16, working in a store like that in retail. And I went to school in New York City for fashion. And I also went to George Washington University to get a business degree. And one of my jobs in the middle of all of that was to work in subsidized housing in Southeast Washington, D.C. And I would say that working in subsidized housing, so if anybody is familiar with Section 8, Section 8 is a voucher or project program that helps people who don't make enough money to pay for housing and bases it on their income, so that they can afford to live in a nice place if they aren't working for a wage that allows them to pay a certain amount of their income. And when you work in an environment like that, you get to see people that I personally wouldn't have come across in the past, because I did not grow up in that area. I didn't grow up in Southeast Washington. I grew up in Virginia. And I also didn't live in that part of the area of the country, and I didn't live in subsidized housing. So my view of subsidized housing would have come from the perspective of only what I would have heard or read about subsidized housing. And my employer at the time was fantastic. They were doing construction and managing properties. And what was fantastic about them is they would take the money that they invested in the property and that they earned in the property largely, and put it back into the property for programs for people that live there. And this model, even to this day, doesn't exist widely in companies that own subsidized housing. So I really like this model because they're putting it back into the community. Similar ideas to what we have here at 93.7 The Ticket. So that alone gave me perspective where I learned about people who are amazing, right? The people that lived in my properties, and there were 200 of them that were under the coverage of this company that I worked for. And so I was all over the country dealing with subsidized housing. So it wasn't just Southeast Washington. It was all over the country in Kentucky, Colorado, North and Southeast, in Pennsylvania, Florida, lots and lots of states. And what you realize is that the folks that are having to live in this environment are, regular people, no surprise. However, if you don't have exposure to that, and given what the news might talk about or what you read or somebody you might know, you can have your own perspective about what subsidized housing might be. So that was a little bit of my first entree into the recognition that not everybody grew up like I did. I had a very nuclear family, a mom, a dad, one brother who's awesome. And that's it. It was the four of us, middle-class white family. I later then, after I left this complex where I was managing property, I went back to school, got my MBA, and did a few internships and came out and worked at ExxonMobil. So hopefully people listening know ExxonMobil, very large oil company. And I started there in the late 90s, and I left 5 years ago when DP and I came to Nebraska. So I had a very long career there. And the great thing about ExxonMobil, just a fantastic company, leaders, in my view, in trying to make the workforce feel included, recognizing that the systemic issues that happened in corporate America, let's say, over decades, had some opportunity to be improved upon from a diversity of thought. And so I was very active in my career in representing women. At the time in the late 90s, by nature of who went to school and got engineering degrees and who was typically hired into an oil business, by nothing other than systemic ways of doing a business, it was largely men, and largely men with engineering degrees. And I came in as a marketing person, a business person, and female, and largely working with the engineers. And while you would say no big deal, I was one of very few women ever in any meeting, in any conference room, on the hallway, or anything else. And again, systemic, nothing intentional there, just how corporate America, people with college degrees, however, the oil business, generally, people that are getting engineering degrees are men, unless you're in chemicals. There are a lot of women in chemical engineering in disciplines. So I ended up spending the bulk of my career sort of working towards and trying to understand how we could make it a better environment for women. And we can talk lots about why is that. And I broke the glass ceiling, I guess, is the easiest way to say it. And so I had a very nice career there, really loved the company, loved everybody I worked with, and learned a ton about unconscious bias. And that's a lot of what we'll talk about in this show is unconscious bias. Everybody, I believe, has good intent. And I'm always going to assume that everyone has good intent. But if you don't have a perspective or a worldview or have experience or exposure to certain things, you might have an opinion that's less informed. So that is a long way of my introduction, but for people who don't know me, and Nico, I might have even surprised you with a few things there. I love to hear different viewpoints from people. I love to be challenged, particularly if it's something I don't know. I feel like I don't know anything about, but even if it's something I do know something about, I always love to hear a different perspective. So that's me. So Nico, hopefully you've got your sound working and you're not warbling and you're not in and out, and you can share with the listeners a little bit about you, which maybe you want to start with who's your favorite sports team, since you're on a sports radio station.
Okay. If my audio is in and out, let me know. I'm happy to call in. My favorite sports team is the Huskers, of course. So there's that. But NFL, I'm an Eagles girly. And let me tell you, converting someone from Maryland to the Huskers, quite a feat. But I do, in fact, love the people of Nebraska. So like you said, I believe everyone has good intent. And until I'm proven otherwise, that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So my name is, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm Aniko Renee, and I just want to say that I'm honored to be here on the first episode of Walk the Herd. To start, whoop, whoop. For me, I'd like to say that diversity, equity, and inclusion aren't just concepts or a hot button issue for me. They're my lived experience at all time. Not only as a woman, because I think people forget that's part of the diversity part, but as a biracial woman, I've spent my life trying to navigate many different worlds, classes, communities, walking that line where I can. And in doing so, I've learned the value of truly and actively listening. And like you said, walking in someone else's shoes. It's much easier to help someone when you understand their why. Let's see. Professionally, I have worked in community health improvement as an outreach coordinator. I ran a public health improvement coalition for the state of Maryland, which involves connecting community members, state agencies, nonprofits, and making sure that everybody has a seat at the table, everyone's heard, and we're making true, authentic decisions to improve people's livelihood with good intentions, just like this podcast. But at my core, I'm a student of life. I think you would agree as well. So I'm always seeking new perspectives, knowledge, new opportunities to connect. My biological mother's side hails from Appalachia in West Bygod, Virginia. And as you stated, dad's part of the V of what we call the DMV. And I reside in Southern Maryland. So I've had a pretty good time at it. So I just want to say, I genuinely appreciate this opportunity. I'm so excited to see where this goes. Thank you for having me. Let's take a walk and see where it takes us.
Fantastic. And one of the great things about having you here is this makes us at least 2 generations. I think some of the perspectives can just come with multi-generational societal things we grow up with. So I get to say I'm old. I've thankfully have adapted to doing cell phones. I grew up with no cell phones. I had one of the very first portable phones, I'm going to call it. Okay, so everybody listening who's old, you'll laugh. I had a bag phone in my car. A thing probably weighed 20 pounds. Jake, I don't know if you even remember those darn things. I was super proud of me having one of those things, and we carried around, and literally the thing weighed like 20 pounds. It looked like a lunchbox. Completely ridiculous in today's world, but I've adapted. But because of your generation, Nico, growing up with cell phones from the beginning, computers from the beginning, again, none of us had computers. You have different expectations on information availability. You have different access to information, and we'll talk about access repeatedly because it's one of those things that distinguishes different groups. Let's say access to all different kinds of things. So. Just a short way of saying I love having a multi-generational view because it's one of the ways that you can get a different perspective. And most of the people listening to us, many of them will have kids, and so they'll know about this because they have children already in a different generation. So I wanted to ask you something based on some of the work experience that you've had, and I'm putting you on the spot, I know, but I want to see if when you started maybe with the health department, whether you had your own paradigms going into that about anything that maybe changed when you got in there. So you're in your first experience of, I think I'm going to go into this job and have expectations of whatever. Was there anything that struck you, that struck you as something that you had to change your perspective on?
Can you say the last part for me? I'm so sorry. I'm going to call in if needed.
Yes. I was wondering, when you started with the health department, was there anything that you learned or saw in there that was a different perspective than what you had expected going into the job?
Yes. I do genuinely believe that people work at state agencies and public health improvement in particular because they have the true desire to help and make a difference. I will say, I kind of went into it with sunshine and rainbows, not really realizing, how much policy and sometimes politics go into the health policies and availability of whether it's grants, subsidies, projects of interest, funding. So I was interested to see the change, not only, coming of age. Like you said, I'm part of the generation that witnessed the first like you said, computer, laptop. We were the first ones that were trained throughout and through to use technology. And part of that job was leading monthly virtual meetings for us. And it's interesting to find how disconnected we are while being so connected, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And why do you say that? Because you certainly were working there, I think, during COVID, right? So you had some need for doing Zoom meetings, but also people that you were working with were not all located in Maryland where you are. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I came on right after COVID. So right when they were kind of getting back in the swing after doing contract tracing, they did great. They were ahead of the other surrounding counties in terms of getting that information out. When I started, we had a very small team. There was 3 of us running communications for the agency. And you would be surprised how many people, even within said agency, weren't sure how to raise their hand in a meeting using Google Meet, or didn't know how to use the sign-in sheet for us to say who was here. So it's little things like that that you would just think that we take for granted, we being millennials and like my brother, just little nuances here and there that make a huge difference in communication and the flow of things.
And if for anybody who's ever been on a Zoom meeting, Teams meeting, Google Meet meeting, and you want to say something and you can't, or more importantly, I think, and this goes to inclusion being heard, you have to make a very specific effort in a scenario like that when people aren't talking. 1 or 2 people will dominate. I mean, this is true in a live meeting, but when you're on Zoom, it's not at all uncommon to have 1 or 2 people very comfortable talking, know how to push the button, know how to raise their hand, and they're just talking away. And people that are not as comfortable or don't know how don't speak. And unless the leader is actively trying to make sure that everybody who wants to speak speaks, people get left out. So then you're having to make an effort to call on people to ask them to speak. Did you have that experience?
I had that experience for the first few meetings until I remembered that, I'm very capable of walking down the hall and asking, are there any points that you'd like me to queue up ahead of time? Reaching out to our partner organizations and saying, do you have any flyers that you want me to be able to link in the chat directly? Things like that, showing beforehand, hey, NAACP chair, can you hop on 10 minutes before so I can show you how to raise your hand and how to drop your flyer if you'd like to on your own. So just with nice care, patience, and communication, it becomes much easier. And we were able to streamline the process, grow our team. I think their team is now at 12, 13 and growing. So taking the time to really hear others and making what seems like, to me, a small effort makes a huge impact for others.
Right, 100%. And when I was at ExxonMobil and we'd be in these large meetings, 10, 12 people, huge conference room tables, we had lots of conversation when we were trying to make an inclusive work environment, let's say, and make sure that we understood that some people are just quiet. It's not that they don't have anything to say. It's not that they don't want to speak, but some people are intimidated by the loud voice in the room. Some people just aren't comfortable raising their hand. There are a million reasons why somebody who is quieter or somebody who doesn't voice their opinion doesn't say it. And so we got to where we were evaluating folks and training them to ask people in the room, do you have an opinion on this? Or what do you think so-and-so? And again, lots of large personalities, maybe my division specifically, but you get in a room with a bunch of sales guys or gals who are all comfortable talking to customers and other people drown out and you miss a lot of perspective. And this goes to diversity of thought. So if you want to make sure that everybody is heard, sometimes you have to actually ask someone for their opinion and not wait for them to give it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think you can tie that back to inclusion as well. It's not like there aren't adults that don't also have learning disabilities. Most people in this area read at a 5th grade level and below. So making slides, notes, presentations that are accessible and easy to read so that embarrassment isn't an issue or comprehension isn't an issue. To me, again, small things, but big impact. It's very hard to read a 26 bulleted slide in a 1 hour meeting if you're struggling to see even what it says. And the other thing we did that really amped up our membership for the coalition was including language services, translators, to make sure that because the meetings are open to the community. That's the best part of a community health improvement coalition. You don't know who's joining. You hope multiple people join, but having that laid in leaps and bounds ahead.
Right. And taking the time to get to know who's in the room, and then language, we could have a whole nother, and maybe we will have a topic on what it's like to sit in a room when you're in a room speaking English and it is not your native language. So with that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to tee up tonight's topic. We're going to talk about street names, and hopefully I have a story that will draw you into that conversation. Stay tuned. This is Rebecca and Anika with Walk the Herd at 93.7 The Ticket.
Select Plumbing and Utility has been serving Lincoln and the surrounding area for 14 years, and they're not slowing down. Select Plumbing and Utility handles all your plumbing needs, from faucets and water heaters to full renovations, and they can even help with your heating and cooling needs. They're also Lincoln's underground experts, repairing and replacing broken underground water and sewer lines since day one. Contact Select Plumbing and Utility today at 402-560-6197, assuring excellence in every situation, opportunity, and challenge. That's 402-560-6197.
An overdose can happen in front of you and you might not realize it. Blue lips, slowed breathing, pinpoint pupils, choking sounds, unresponsive to touch or sounds. These signs aren't always obvious, but they can be deadly. Knowing what to do could save your friend, your neighbor, your child. Learn more by visiting myhealthymind.crediblemmind.com so you can be ready before it happens. This message is funded in part by the CDC OD2A grant.
Rico here with HIS Auto Care at 70th and Van Dorn, letting you know HIS is a great place to bring your vehicle for service. With superior service bumper to bumper, we'll treat your vehicle like it's your mother's. Doesn't get any better than that. So call 402-488-8934 and HIS Auto will make you glad you did. 5% off, mention this ad, and for sure your mother will be proud you called. 402-488-8934, HIS Auto Care, 70th and Van Dorn. God bless you.
Hi, my name is Molly Party. I'm a realtor with MP Dodge Real Estate. I'm a newly licensed agent and considered numerous brokerages before deciding on MP Dodge. I chose the company that gives me the most support in my new career, plus guidance and encouragement along the way. MP Dodge has a unique mentoring program for new agents. It's helped jumpstart my career and has a supportive management team and administrative staff. So if you're contemplating a career in real estate, look no further than MP Dodge. It will be the best decision you make.
With UBT, you've got total control over your money. Like Doug, who runs his game day tailgate like a well-oiled machine.
I got burgers, brats, chicken, dogs, plus all the fixins. And with the UBT Go app, I can track my food spending from anywhere.
Pro move.
They don't call me Grill Sergeant for nothing.
No matter your goals, UBT helps you feel good about reaching them. Union Bank and Trust. Member FDIC.
What's better than supporting your favorite radio station and eating delicious Nebraska-made products? Smoking Gun Jerky of Nebraska wants to highlight you, the listener, on the 93.7 The Ticket Wall of Fame at the store. Stop by the store at 48th and R in Lincoln and see their huge variety of small batch gourmet jerky. Or if you're not in the area and want to try some, go to smokinggunjerky.com and enter code EARLY for 10% off your purchase. It's the ultimate low-calorie, high-protein snack at Smoking Gun Jerky of Nebraska.
Load up on meat and more this fall at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese. This week's specials through September 2nd are $1 off buns, 15% off cheese and crackers, 10-ounce grass-fed, grass-finished New York strips for $17.99 each, and steakhouse burger packs for $13.99. Plus, stop by for lunch on Fired Up Thursday at the Mercado East or Fired Up Friday at the Mercado North, with locations at 84th and Havelock, 30th and Yankee Hill, and now 85th and Old Cheney in Lincoln, or 168th and Maple in Omaha. Get to the Mercado today for the best meat in town.
Looking for a financial partner that truly makes a difference? Modern Woodman is a member-owned fraternal financial services organization. We can help you plan for all stages of life, from protection to saving to retirement. We also offer member benefits, social activities, and volunteer opportunities to help your family and community.
I'm Sean Erickson, your Modern Woodman representative in Lincoln. Call me at 402-483-6515 to start the conversation.
Modern Woodman of America, touching lives, securing futures.
You're listening to Walk the Herd on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Rebecca Pearson.
This is Rebecca Pearson and Walk the Herd at 93.7 The Ticket. If you're listening, thank you. This is our inaugural show, and this is where the unheard get heard and every perspective counts. And right before the break, my co-host for today, Nico, and I were just explaining who on earth we are. So very briefly, I own the station here with DP. For those who are regular listeners, you know Derek Pearson. We're co-owners of 93.7 The Ticket, and Aniko is my daughter. She's in Maryland. And we both have our own experiences, multi-generational. And I'm going to tee up a topic that's really square in with what we would like to talk about, which is we're inviting you to walk with us into someone else's world. So here we go. So I want to talk about street names. So I'm here in Lincoln. And have you ever, I'm going to throw out a few things from Lincoln, but no matter where you're listening to us and where you are, have you ever driven down a street, ever, and wondered why on earth does that street have that name for whatever reason? All right. So Bach, what do you think? Have you ever heard of a street name where you wondered why the heck it was called that?
Yeah. And I think you're always interested in like where, who named it? How did it come from? Some of them are just interesting names. Right.
And sometimes they belong to people or sometimes it's the neighborhood and where they built the street or whatever. So here in Lincoln, we have a long street called Normal Boulevard. I wonder frequently, why is Normal Boulevard called Normal Boulevard? Maybe there was a general normal. Maybe there was somebody who was normal, but I always wonder, why is it called Normal Boulevard? And then we have a creek called Dead Man's Run. That makes me kind of wondering, why is it called Dead Man's Run? That one's a little more particular. In doing some of my research, we have South Street here, if you're in Lincoln, but it goes east-west. So these are things that make me go, So here's my story. And this is the tee up to, this is kind of a paradigm, unconscious bias kind of a topic. I was recently at a business here in Lincoln. It's in, South Lincoln. And it's in the Williamsburg area called Arrive Co-working. And it serves primarily Lincoln's female and minority entrepreneurs in a collaborative, safe, and focused space. It's open to everybody, but it largely currently serves that population. And I was having a meeting there, and I invited some guests to come look at it with me because I have a super cool place. It's really nice. And if you need co-working space, check out Arrive. However, my guests happened to be African-American, which is no big deal, except I was giving instructions and giving the address. And the address, as I was giving it, was on Plantation Drive. And I had one of those deer in the headlight moments. And I met them there and they got out of the car and I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. Didn't think about it. Okay. And I've been there multiple times to Plantation Drive and it never crossed my mind until I had these wonderful people that I was meeting there and I'm giving the address and I'm getting out on Plantation Drive. And it struck me that this has some connotations to it. And it just had not registered with me, largely because of my worldview, largely because from where I come from, I think. Now, for those who are listening and live in Lincoln, you might know Plantation Drive. You probably don't know Plantation Drive, not a big street, but it's in that Williamsburg area near 40th and Old Cheney. And there's also a Union Drive there. So that struck me as maybe not the favorite name for someone driving and going to this facility that was largely meant for minority and female entrepreneurs. And you may be wondering what's wrong with Plantation Drive. So in my multi-generational approach, bringing Aniko on, hopefully you can hear me, Aniko, you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Would you mind giving a perspective on that story of how might my guests have felt, or how would you have felt if you were going to that location? Does it strike you as an odd name?
I'd like to start by saying the fact that you didn't think anything of it surprises me, because when I see a sign like that, it feels very intentional. It's either a warning of you and your business don't belong here, or a reminder that you should be kept in your place, perhaps.
Yeah.
So it kind of hits that ping in the bottom of your stomach of like, ooh, do I need to be on guard? And as I said before, my biological mother being from Appalachia, there's a lot of pride in Southern and country living. So I understand where the shame aspect comes into play, where people may not want to acknowledge that that is a problem or that is a thing that happens. And I can't speak for all Black or African-American people, but it seems very intentional, and perhaps not. Perhaps it's for them, they genuinely feel a sense of pride, or a time where their family was prosperous and things were maybe easier for them. But for us, it's like, why would you want to highlight something where many people were treated in ways pretty much the worst that humans can do to each other? We have, if your argument is it was in the past, we have come so far. Why not name it something that reflects better history? If it's that, we have so many, and Lincoln specifically, if it's about history, you have Heisman Trophy winners, Johnny Rogers and Eric Crouch. Maybe they have streets already, maybe not. My personal favorite, Coach Ahmad Rashad Green, he's been great. He's currently teaching students at the university. You know, you have Tom Osborne, Johnny Carson. There's so many ways to divert your history, keep your history, and make it something everybody can be proud of and scoop ahead. I totally understand, like I said, shame is hard for anyone, but it feels like with a sign like that, you're saying, I don't want to feel shame, but it's fine if you do.
And you know, when I had that experience, I was mortified. First of all, I was mortified because it never dawned on me. I was embarrassed that it never dawned on me. I was with incredibly gracious and very professional women who, I hate to say, are used to it. It's not probably the right way to describe it, but have had to deal with it. Let's put it that way. And they were very gracious to me, but I was downright embarrassed because it never occurred to me. And that, while it's not an excuse, it is a perspective that I was not tuned into, and I should have been, right? So that's just me, because I want to be aware of those things. Now, none of us are responsible for naming that street. It is what it is. Great place to be, to go there. But I think talking about the perspective that you have and how just your first reaction to that, my reaction when I put two and two together, you know, shame on me for not doing that. But then also, you know, why does it matter? Because I think, and you sort of mentioned this, that feeling welcome, feeling like this is a place for you. And particularly in this case, where this is a place for, we hope, for minority entrepreneurs. And here in Nebraska, we have a lot of Native Americans. You might be Asian, you could be anything. This is a predominantly white state, but with a very strong Native American population and history. So back to naming streets, and we could go down the Native American route with sports, where teams have had to change their names, or there's lots of conversation about changing sport names because of the references to Native Americans. And everybody doesn't agree, including Native Americans. You know, some are okay with those names, some are not, right? There's a lot of perspective. And so that's why we're not trying to persuade people here on the show. We're trying to share a perspective. And so if you want someplace to be welcoming and it has a name, whether it's a street name, a building name, or anything else, and you want to be inclusive to the people that you're targeting to participate there, then you might want to think about something like that.
I want to emphasize again, the people of Nebraska, when my son and I have come, have never been anything but welcoming. Friendlier than, I might say, some in the DC, Maryland area from time to time. I just think
even with how successful Nebraska is and the Cornhuskers, are you limiting maybe some of the best athletes that you could be having to come play because they're around town and seeing that?
Right.
Is it something that's so small that it doesn't bother others? Perhaps. But if it didn't bother a large majority, I don't think there would be such big pushes to change it.
Mm-hmm.
I can say in Southern Maryland, down here, we're very closely linked to Thomas Jefferson, breeding farms, an excess of, again, the worst of the worst.
Right.
We have plantations down here that lead tours. We take field trips there. Sometimes the facts are sugar-coated. But I also have to say in the same breath, those plantation organizations are now working in philanthropy, pouring back into community organizations. So it's that interesting, again, line that I walk.
Right. And I think the perspective of wanting to be welcoming, or to the fact that I think the point you're making is an excellent one, which is there's really no need to harp on why something got named whatever it was. I mean, most of us were not around when any street name was given. And it's more about what are you doing going forward and how are you thinking about that? And particularly, I want to talk about what it takes to change a street name in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's not going to be that different in other parts of the country. But you certainly have a perspective that a plantation is just a word to describe real estate, right? And for people who don't have that connection to plantations and the Revolutionary War and slavery and the things that plantations connote, and movies, you can, if you don't have any of this experience, you can see and watch plenty of movies where you get that perspective. But it's more about there are plenty of other options. So when you go to change a street name and you're looking at it from a business perspective, as you said, why not highlight and go through the effort to change some of these names that might be offensive to some people, to something that celebrates your history. I love that point that you made. I think people would love to have a Johnny Rogers Street. I don't think there is one in Lincoln. Bach, are you aware of one in Lincoln?
No, they just named Eric Crouch Street in Omaha. So
no, nice.
Yeah,
okay.
you get one in Lincoln too. I'd like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we need to. All right. So here's a little project for the sports team here for the Walk the Herd. Maybe we need to start something at the ticket, a promo to get a Johnny Rogers Street, or there's many other celebrated. Amon Green would love that, right? We have plenty of our own.
Jackson Street could be great.
Yes, exactly. We have volleyball players of all types. John Cook Stadium, right? There's any number of things. So I love that perspective, because we don't really want to get caught up in whether it means something to you or it's offensive to you or it's not, or you didn't think about it, or, have the, God help us, have the eye roll of it's not important, because it is important. And what's important is that there are other things you could do to communicate, to make either celebrate heroes, to make someplace welcoming. And I always think of this from the business perspective, Aniko, that if I had a business on any street, even if I was on Normal Street, Normal's okay. But if I had a business or a house and I lived on a street that wasn't welcoming, it's kind of weird. And I was racking my brain to get us out of plantations and onto something else that could very likely happen. If you had a prison and you tore down the prison, this happened in Virginia. I lived near probably 2 miles from the prison that they tore down, and they built houses on it. So this is very real. Well, what if you built a community? And for those in Lincoln, that they built a Williamsburg type community. So you have homes, condos, apartments, stores, businesses. And we tore down the prison down on 27th and 2nd, let's say, and built a bunch of houses, and then named the streets Prisoner Row, Murder Boulevard, and, whatever else. It wouldn't be very welcoming. Right? And
concentration camp circle doesn't have enough ring to it,
right? So when you take it out of the context of the history and just take something that I think everybody could relate to, that's one of those things that, okay, well, this is not welcoming. So if you're a business and you're on one of these streets, we're going to talk about what that takes as a business to change that when we come back from the break. This is Rebecca and Nico on Walk the Herd at 93.7 The Ticket.
Have you been injured in an accident and don't know where to turn? You need an attorney you can trust to handle your case with professionalism and compassion. The attorneys at Liberty Law Group understand that a call to an attorney is a call for help. If you've been injured, we want to help you. Liberty Law's experienced attorneys are committed to the pursuit of justice for those injured. Call Liberty Law Group and find out how we can help get you the compensation you deserve. Call 877-42-LIBERTY. 877-42-LIBERTY. Liberty Law Group. Trial attorneys you can trust.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
Rick Heyman here from Sartor Heyman Jewelers. I want to personally thank our great customers for voting us once again the best of Lincoln. At the same time, we're celebrating our 120th year in business in the great state of Nebraska. Visit us at South Point, Grand Island, and the Outlet in downtown Lincoln. Visit us today at SartorHeyman.com.
Sartor Heyman Jewelers.
Nebco is hiring CDL drivers for ready-mixed concrete in Lincoln. With 3 plants across the city, there are plenty of opportunities to start or grow your driving career. They offer great pay, medical and retirement benefits, paid time off, and they cover the cost of CDL training. Apply today and receive a $2,500 hiring bonus. Since 1908, it's the employees that have formed the company's solid foundation. Start your career today with ready-mixed concrete. Visit NebcoInc.com. That's NEBCOINC.com.
You're listening to Walk the Herd on 93.7 The Ticket. Here is your host, Rebecca Pearson.
Okay, welcome back. This is Rebecca with Walk the Herd, and Nico, we've got you on the phone. Our multi-generational conversation today. We are all over the place, but this is a new show, and we're trying to give you some perspective. We'd love for you to participate in the conversation. We are not trying to persuade you to our opinion. We are simply sharing perspective and getting everybody to go, So we left you right before the break talking about, hey, what if we tore down the prison and built a bunch of houses and named all the streets Prisoner Row and Murder Boulevard and all those things? It would not feel very welcoming. And while you have street names in the entire country, we started with Plantation Drive. There's Plantation Drives all over this country. They're largely in the South. And for the obvious reason of these were used to be plantations. I'm sure that is the genesis of most of these places that were named. And back when these streets were named, the sensitivities around some of these things were not as visible as they are today. Thank goodness we're making progress on making these things more understood by the people that don't naturally understand it. However, once you've discovered something, it's probably a good time to have the conversation of what it would take to change it. So Nico, I'm going to share a couple of things that are useful. I'd like to get your reactions to. In order to change a street name, if you're a business, let's just start with businesses because houses are another thing, but let's just start with a business because you have to make a business case to do this. So it's going to cost money to change a street name. The sign is like the easiest thing and not the expensive thing. If you're a business, and you have an address, then changing your address, for anybody who has moved, you know what a pain that is to change your address just for your house. So what if you're changing your address for your business? You've got contracts you've got to change. You've got letterhead, which is probably not the biggest one. You've got agreements with people, maybe insurance. And all those things are maybe intuitive if you're thinking about, okay, what's the cost of change? And then you've got emergency services. You've got Google Maps, things like that are emergency services use to find people in an emergency. And so all of that has to be dealt with. And so when you start to put those things out there, the reaction of many people can be, that's a lot of work and I don't see what the problem is. And so that for me is what I want to tackle is the ROI for a business to do something like that. And I'm going to put forth that some of the things to consider are, don't you have a better name for the street in general to celebrate or attract people to your business? So think if your street name was welcoming, it's part of communications. I'm a marketing person by training. So I think about every little opportunity I have. I want whatever I'm communicating to help me bring people to my business. So that's the first thing I think of is, wouldn't there be a better name for me, depending on what type of business I have, that would bring that business in. And then the second thing to me, and then Nico, I'd love your perspective on this, is, what about people that you work with, your customers, or not people physically coming to your place, but people who are looking at your letterhead, who might say, okay, you're on Plantation Drive, and that, for that person's perspective, maybe doesn't feel good to them. So how do you think about that?
So I can definitely say part of being a millennial, quote unquote, is knowing that a change in terms of street names, Google Maps, et cetera, is pretty synonymous. It's very easy to go across the board. I would also say for some, it's kind of hard to navigate and dismantle something that's so built into our society. I mean, I have plantation blinds, which my realtor so lovingly called plantain blinds for me. You have, master bedrooms, things like that. Some people could say, how far do we take that? Another thing that I would like to hit on is to say, acknowledging someone else's pain does not take away from what you've experienced in your life. It does not make you guilty until perhaps you keep allowing it. Or maybe the point again is to say, I don't want your business. I do prefer to have more people around me that think like me, look like me. Maybe that's just how it is. But I think a new perspective could be, if you want Lincoln to reflect the kindness, the openness that people have, you have to be willing to make said changes. And circling back to my family's history in Appalachia, taking advantage of in coal miner towns, strictly, I'm not taking away that there are plenty of white people and other people who went through hard times. But there's this sentiment in my family even of, well, I didn't do it, so why should I change it? Well, I don't feel this way, so why should I change it? And I have to circle back again. Acknowledging somebody else's pain does not take away from yours until you co-sign and continue to be okay with that. If it really doesn't bother you and you really don't feel this way about people, like you said, there's so many great things and so many names that we could put there.
Tons of choices, right? And I just love this concept of, acknowledging it doesn't mean you did it. It doesn't mean you're responsible. But I think it's like anything. Once you become aware of something that hopefully you're at least tuned into and thinking about, this makes someone important to me not feel good. And
yes,
right, for whatever reason.
Yes. And previously, in working in public health, the CDC, other organizations find that the best way to gauge someone's mental capacity isn't remembering appointments, remembering names. It's their ability to take in and conceptualize new ideas.
Right. And being open-minded and being willing to do that is just part of us being humans. I listened to a couple different podcasts today. It's Sunday, so I tend to do a little spiritual podcasting, and there were lots of things about listening to how other people feel and caring about that. And I think you're great at relating this back to Lincoln, even though you're in Maryland. And because when you have been here, and our fabulous grandson, Mr. Nate, this is a lovely place, and people are very welcoming here and very open-minded. And why would we, as a city, want to have street names when there's so many choices? I think that's the issue, right? There's so many choices. It's not like there's no other choice. Street names, there are plenty of them. So this is not all you're left with. And why would we want to keep propagating that feeling, especially when it's part of, now I put my straight business hat on, the ROI would be making my business, or even my house, if my house was on this street and I had people that I wanted to come over for a party who, they're not going to not come to my party because I live on Plantation Drive. They like me. However, that thought is entering their head when they turn onto Plantation Drive or any other street name that has that same connotation, and it sparks something in them, right? So with so many other options, why shouldn't we go after them? And I'm going to be on a mission here in the city, and this is why I have so much information on this and why we're talking about it today, because I wanted to explore getting Plantation Drive changed. And I understand where businesses are coming from, but I also think there's an argument to be made that there are choices, and if you can make your business more welcoming to customers, to employees, perhaps. We haven't even talked about employees, or to people that might be reading your letterhead. Why wouldn't we do that? And especially if you can overcome the money thing. And the money thing is interesting, right? People have a value proposition for how much money they have to pay to change something. So how do you market that to someone in Nico and convince them it's worth a little bit of money? Because it could be, for some of these bigger businesses, we're still talking rounding error on their budgets. However, it's money. And for these smaller businesses, it could be something substantial to them in the small business world. But how do you think about that ROI for a business?
So I would have to say, as someone who also ordered inventory promo business cards, is the cost of new business cards going to outweigh, now that student athletes can get paid for endorsements and sponsorships? If they really love your product and they really love your business, how much does it cost you to have the face of the Cornhuskers team not want to do business or not tell their children to come here, or not? What does that cost would be my question.
I agree. And then just in my purest business sense, the PR value, or the goodwill, let's call it that, because PR can sound negative, the goodwill associated with communicating to your tenant base, customer base, your constituents could be, tenfold in the value you can create by saying, hey, we're doing this and this is why. Bear with us while we change our name and address. So with that, any parting thoughts, Anika? We're out of time. Can you believe that?
I can't, but I can say, a sentiment that there's a lot of great white history too. Why don't we highlight it?
Let's do it. I love that thought. All right. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this Walk the Herd with Anika and Rebecca, our first show. We will see you next Sunday night, and where we invite you to walk with the herd and not run with the herd.
When it comes to concrete, Stevens & Smith Construction